He's been doing this for exactly 20 years. He started in 2003, 2004, and he excelled year after year with the support of us and community college that trained him, really. So at the age of 73, he started his career in art. And he excelled, he did so well. He did scenes mostly of the Central Valley and mostly of farm scenes. He did landscapes, and he did scenes of Visalia, distinct scenes like the hot dog stand, China Alley, and also scenes of Sri Lanka, and that's where he was born and raised, and that's where his journey actually began in the arts field.
Yeah, Mark, could you tell us a little bit about his beginning, his journey as an artist, kind of the timeline of that?
Yes, actually it started at the age of 8. He was in school and he was given a art project to do, and there was an art competition, and he said he did this drawing, he painted it, and he came in second. And he said to his teacher, he said, "Why am I in second place?" He says, "Well, if you look at the one person that won the painting, it was all done in blue. Everything is blue, and it was I call it a knockoff of Picasso when Picasso was doing the blue period. And this kid, at 8 years old, had picked up on that, and he did a painting of, I don't know what it was a scene, but it was all in blue, and that sparked an interest from that time onwards. He started thinking about that painting, the blue painting that Picasso did, and this little kid that won the prize. The reason why he won the prize was he was so distinct from all other artists. The artwork was so distinct and different from anything else that was being presented. And also, he was raised as a Buddhist. I don't know if you knew this about him. His family were strong Buddhists, and he would go to temples and as a child. And if you know anything about Buddhist temples in Asia, they have lots of what they call frescoes and drawings and paintings, very colorful paintings of kings and queens and princesses and elephants, and it's very, stories are told by art there. And a lot of it was Buddhist based. And that intrigued him. He saw beautiful paintings, and color was very important to him. They used a lot of vibrant colors in the temples. And so that was his introduction to, I don't want to call it commercial, but it was sort of art that was known in the community. And also he dabbled as a young man in caricatures. I don't know if you know what a caricature is, but it's similar to a cartoon, but he would see a face and he would sketch it. He would just take his pen and ink, and he would sketch a face, and it would be a friend, a teacher, and he actually got in trouble regarding that. As a man of 24, 25, he was working for American Airlines in Los Angeles, and my dad had a tendency sometimes to drift off, and we dream about stuff, and he drew his boss. And his boss came around and asked him, what are you doing? Aren't you doing ticketing for the airlines? He said, "Oh no, I was just dabbling." He said, let me see what you did. And it was a caricature of his boss. And he'd given him hair in his ears, and made a big nose, and made him look hideous. And fortunately, he didn't lose his job. It would have been devastating because he was the breadwinner at the time. And so then, in In 1981, I'm sorry about that, he went to a class given by a very famous artist in Sri Lanka, and he kind of blossomed from that point. And he did his very first oil painting, and I have it here, and I'd like to show it to you. This painting was done in 1981, and you can see the seeds of his development starting from that point. And you can see it in the colors. And I want to tell you a little story about this painting. It's a scene from Sri Lanka. It's in a place called Plains. This was done in a place called Plains. And where he's at is called World's End. And it's a sheer drop from where he was standing for 1,000 feet. And it's a jungle scene. And he got up early morning and he trekked out into the wilds. And here's it, break of dawn. And this was his first painting. And you can see that even at that age of, I think it was like 48 or so, 49, 48, that his art was starting to blossom. It took another 22 years before he started actually painting from this point. But he would do black and whites. He didn't get into any more oil painting. But you can see that you can see his style emerging even at that age, 20 years, before he really started getting into it seriously. And I think also when we owned the House of Flowers, he saw the beauty in nature and flowers, and I think that sparked an interest in him to get into art. And when he retired from the House of Flowers, he went to COS. And he did as many classes as he could until he was told he couldn't do anymore. So can't do it anymore. You can't do, I think he did like 5 times. And they loved him, but there was some kind of a clause or some kind of a regulation that he can't keep repeating classes. So he did it as long as he could. And he was said, Ernie, sorry, you can't come back anymore, you know. So then at that point, I think he did for 3 or 4 years, and then from that point he went on to other workshops, and so that's kind of his beginning.
Can you talk kind of about the techniques and materials that he would use? Like, what were his medium choices and why?
He loved plein air, the plein air style, meaning painting the light, being out in the open, being out in plein air. That's the French. I think the French meaning of that is. So he loved being out in the open, and he hated painting from photographs or from magazines. He wanted to be out in the open. He wanted to walk out, and he wanted the light. He loved light. You can tell a lot of his paintings are full of light. There's very little darkness in his paintings. And you can see a lot of blue. His early experience with blue, that little painting of his friend, which influenced him ultimately. He did oils mostly, and then acrylics. And he worked mostly on canvas. He did his paintings from paintbrush. He would get a paintbrush and he would sketch out his scene. He didn't sketch from a notepad very often, and he would actually do his scene and take it from there.
So, in his techniques, would he kind of finish it all at once, or would it be in different stages?
It would be in different stages, yeah.
Interesting. Were there any specific places that he was drawn to that he wanted to go to repeatedly in his plein air studies?
He loved the Central Valley. He was a big city kid, and somehow he got, in his later years, got a place in cute little Central Valley a small agricultural area, Visalia at the time. And he loved painting scenes, as you can tell, cotton fields, hot dog, the small city life, hot dog stand, China Alley, and the parks and groves and ranches he loved. Those very simple scenes. He didn't like to be complicated. He also enjoyed painting in Sri Lanka. The hill country of Sri Lanka. He painted the tea estates, jungle scenes, this one. He also loved painting the coastals, the southern coast of Sri Lanka, where he painted a scene of a bay. I'll describe to you a bay, and it actually has red cliffs. It was very scenic to see red cliffs. You've heard of the White Cliffs of Dover. Well, they have red cliffs of Sri Lanka. And he loved the coast. He loved painting the water and boats, and he loved painting boats on the water, being an island.
Wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up with Ernie as a father? What was it like having that creative household environment?
Yeah, he would sketch. He would do very often. He'd do some black and whites, and he was very often doing his caricatures and all that. He bought paintings and statues when we were growing up, and he had an eye for nature. I remember one time we were on a beach, we were walking along, and he saw this driftwood, and it was so he thought it was so artistic that he asked us to drag this driftwood, and he placed it right in the middle of the living room, and he thought it was the greatest thing. There was moss hanging off of it, and people at that time thought, "What are you doing? Why are you bringing driftwood into the house?" But he thought it was the greatest piece of art, and he could see nature, beauty in nature, and he encouraged me to draw. I used to draw, and I can still draw, but I never took it up. When he helped me, he encouraged me to go.
Interesting. So did he ever include you and your siblings in the creative process or anything like that?
He was very sneaky about that. He would catch us in times when we didn't know what we were doing something. He would find us and he'd sketch us. And he, one time it was the morning, and I was sitting on a bench in the patio, and he sketched me. And I still have that at 16. And he was trying out his art. The urges were coming out. And he would include us in sketches.
That's really sweet. Do you feel that he balanced the role as the family head and also as an artist really well?
Yes, he did. He encouraged us to paint and to draw and be creative. And he was I would call him a frustrated artist in his early life, because he was an executive of a company and for many years, and he didn't have a chance to be creative. He was fascinated with artists that were able to start from scratch and become very successful, and I think he wanted to be like that. But it took him many, many years until he got into painting like this. I mean, this quality. He told me he regretted that he didn't take up art at a young age. And I said, "Well, Dad, I wouldn't be here." He said, "Well, I know, my mom wouldn't be here." I said, "No, yeah, he knew that." But he said if he started at 16 to present, he would be. He said he'd be a very successful artist. I said, "Dad, you are a successful artist." No. He's a top artist. And I figured that to be, on the lines of, maybe I don't want to say Renoir, but he could have, if he had 60 years of painting, he could have reached a level of being a sort of classical artist that we know of.
You mentioned that you're a writer. Can you speak about how he encouraged you to kind of pursue your own creative?
Yes. He and I went to a school that was fashion on British education. So we we had a very good, we had a lot of literature in the house. We read a lot. We had a lot of books, classical books. And I took up writing at a later age, a few years ago. And when I write to him, he said, "Mark, I think you're a good writer. You could put sentences together." And he encouraged me, and I would talk to him about stories I wrote. And he would listen. One thing about Ernie, my dad, he was a great listener. And you all know him. He was patient, so safe. You could talk his ear off, and he would just listen and have a smile on his face and be and seem interested.
I love that. Oh, so it's great that he mentored you. Did he have any mentors, any artists, or any historical figures?
He had a class teacher that actually had the exhibition when he was a little lad. His mentor, and his name was Donald Ramanayake, and he influenced my dad a lot. Impressionist movement, Renoir, Monet, Victor Degas were his people that influenced him.
That's wonderful. So I know Ernie wasn't originally from the U.S. Could you kind of speak a little as far as like what his work means for artists and creatives who do immigrate from other areas?
Yes, he was quite unique in that way. He didn't. A lot of Sri Lankan artists, a lot of Asian artists, they hold on to their heritage and they paint scenes of their heritage, and they sort of create scenes of either their homeland, or they don't paint pictures of their adopted home. He did that, and his paintings reflect the Central Valley that he loved. He loved this area so much. He loved the Blossom Trail. He loved the mountains, and he loved scenes like this China Alley, and he adored this area. But he didn't hang on to his Sri Lankan heritage. He adopted the European style of painting, American style of painting. So a lot of his friends, you see artist friends in Sri Lanka, they're very, there's a lot of Buddhist influence in their paintings.
Interesting. Do you feel that by adopting more of that Western style and still kind of holding on to some of the cultural elements, he's creating this connection between cultures in his art?
Yes, he does have some connections to Sri Lanka in some of his paintings, but I think the agriculture scenes are reminiscent of his home. Sri Lanka is an agricultural country. There's a lot of vegetation, so you see that his paintings, they're either agriculture or there's vegetation in his paintings.
What do you feel personally, and what do you think Ernie might have felt? Like, how did he want his artwork to speak to future artists?
Well, I can tell you one thing that he told me. He said, if you have a passion, follow it. Do it early. Don't wait till you're 73 to start. But he always considers himself to be a late bloomer, and he told me, he says, don't wait. If you have a passion, go for it. Don't. And he's also said you can start any time, but he said if you have a passion for art or anything, go for it. Don't wait, because you may not have a chance. He started at 73, so he had 20 years.
You did great. Did absolutely great. So unfortunately, I didn't actually get the chance to meet Ernie, but from what I've heard from his friends and family who have been through here is that he had these amazing stories. And I'm curious if you have any personal recollections or stories that you would like to share.
My dad. My dad was a contradiction at times. He was, as a child, he was known as Sweet Ernie. And he was also known as the Fox. The Fox. And I said, Dad, Sweet Ernie, where did that come from? He said, well, I used to draw these caricatures, so his friends would call him Sweet Ernie, because he was very gentle, as you all know, very gentle with him. And he was a boxer. Some of you don't know this, but he was actually a boxer. And he was known as the Fox in the boxing ring. And because he was very quick on his feet, he was, as you can tell, he was not a husky man. He was very slim, and he was very quick on his feet, and he was a champion boxer, actually. And he, at a young age, I shouldn't really say this, but I have to say it, he had a quick temper. And he and I got into some scrapes when he was a lot younger, before he became a Christian. I wanted to clarify that. But he and I, not together. Somebody said something to him, crossed him, cut him off on the road. He would get in the face, and he would. He got into some fights, and he was not very proud of that, but. That's something that I may have never thought of Ernie being that way. You've known him when he became a Christian. He was totally.
Fascinating. How did he keep his creativity going for those 20 years? Like he's so prolific with all of his work. Did he have any habits, any sort of personal rituals that he would do just to keep that creativity flowing?
Yeah, he had an eye for. He had an eye for scenery. We'd be driving we'd be on the grapevine driving, and he'd say, Mark, stop. See some cattle on the road or cattle in the hills, and say, Mark, pull over. I said, Dad, I can't pull over. I'm on the grapevine. And he said, no, you just pull over. We'd pull over, dust in the back of the car, and trucks whizzing by. And he'd get out there with his camera, and he'd go out there and wander around and take pictures of cows. Or cattle in some field. Dad, you can't do this. I said, no. I got it. This is my art. So he'd take pictures, and then he'd go back and he'd draw them out, and then he'd go to fields, and he'd do that. But he loved being out in nature. That was his passion.
Do you have a particular piece of work that you find inspiring? And did he, and is it here today? Did he also have a favorite piece of work of his?
Yes. Now I've had a chance to look around here. I do see a picture that's really caught my eye. It's the mountain scene. I would say it's emblematic of his life. He started a journey, and he made it to the top of his field in art. His work, his company life, and it's it's a strong picture. It's got it's a rock. It's a scene of struggle, a scene of victory. It's a scene of effort. I think that would be my favorite one. His favorite one, I think, looking around. It's between the cotton field and the blossom trail. I think those are his two favorite ones. But I'm thinking more. I think it's the blossom trail that really was his favorite. He loved that time of year.
If he was here today, what do you think he would like to speak on when it comes to the impact of his work? What he wants his work to tell people?
I think he would say that nature is part of God's work, his creator. He was he was a strong Christian man, and his paintings reflected the glories of God. Everything here brings glory. to God, and that's what he would be most happy about. So he was very sensitive to that he wanted to show beauty, he wanted to show, nature.
That's wonderful. And just a closing personal question, how would you like to remember your father?
Well, I would say he was my best friend first, a role model. Patience of a saint, like I've said before, incredibly gifted in common sense, highly intelligent, and a God-fearing man. He was a good soul. He was my best friend. I could talk to him about anything. In fact, I talked to him very just prior to his passing, and he was very encouraging. You could talk to him about anything. He was very kind. He listened, great listener.
He was your best friend, but I think you were his best friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'd like to ask that. He did one of the woman at the well, and it was a scene, but it was a Sri Lankan scene. It was not a traditional Middle Eastern scene where you could see, somebody with a veil or, and Jesus was like a Sri Lankan man, and it was a scene. It was a scene done called "Woman of the Well," as known as we all know in the Bible, that verse or that story. It got sold. I don't know who bought it, but it was titled "Woman at the Well," with Jesus as a Sri Lankan man, and the lady has a Sri Lankan woman with a sari. I don't know if people are aware of saris. Women wear about 6 yards of cloth around their waist, and they put it around their shoulder. That was his one and only Christian-based painting, and that was kind of the early stages of his.
Hi, I had a chance to have some conversations over a number of years with Ernie, sometimes by phone, sometimes in person. Mary Jo and I own a few pieces of his. I missed out on the cotton piece by an hour. Some people wanted to have him. But you're right about Ernie being curious about other art. Mary Jo and I have a reasonable collection of different things and different styles. And he really was interested in other people's art. One particular artist that we have didn't work with a brush, worked with a palette knife exclusively. He had several palette knives and used very thick pieces of oil to go on. And he was really fascinated by that. And occasionally he would ask me, say, "You got anything that would inspire me?" And so occasionally there would be different styles and stuff that I thought might inspire him. Similar, but somehow different. And I remember he really appreciated that. And we had a lot of fun conversations. As you say, he could be very quiet and very listening, but if he engaged with you in a conversation, he was in the conversation. And the points were made and stuff like that, and he had a reply. So he wasn't casting milquetoast by any means.
You're right, absolutely right.
I remember Ernie being just the epitome of a gentleman. He was always so kind and just so giving. And one of the highest compliments I ever received was Ernie saying that he liked a piece of artwork that I had done at an art show, because we were in the art league together. And just as much as he would give you time there in the art scene, we also went to Lifestyles. And I would always see him doing the track around, and he would always stop and be pleasant and smile and gave you just as much time. And he was just one of the sweetest, kindest souls that I've ever met in my life.
He was genuine.
He was, absolutely. Absolutely.
One of my favorite things that Ernie told me when I was first getting to know him was that when he would do his plein air paintings, like I'm sure this one, that he would drive up into the mountains and sleep in his car overnight so that he would get the view of the dawn. You know, he was
known
well
for that.
into his 70s and 80s when he was
Yes.
doing that. And it was like Ernie, you're, you know, no cell coverage up there, and it's just, you know, driving around the mountains.
Actually, I heard from one of his friends that he was driving up to the mountains and he stopped the car in the middle of the road and he got out and he was with his camera, middle of the road, just parked his car. And he got, I mean, this was not too long ago, right?
Yeah.
Right, Randy, were you part of that group when they were going up to the mountains? Or was it Carl?
I know who it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't me, but yeah, it was Bill Dills.
Bill, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And they're going on this windy, mountainous road, middle of nowhere, and my dad thinks, well, I'm going to just park my car right in the middle of the road. And they were coming behind. I think they were behind him, and they had to swerve, and they created this dust storm, getting out of the way. And said, "Ernie, you can't do this. You can't park. Just decide to park in the middle of." And he was just like that. He thought, he'll get around it. Yeah, people will just get around it. So yeah, he's been known to do things like that. If you were here today and hearing these stories, he would just relish all of it, and he would be. He was very modest, very modest. He was not opinionated at all. I mean, he didn't have any. He was a listener, great listener. That's the thing I can talk about. He always liked to hear other people's stories before he told his own.